Hi, Gary Chillingworth here for Airgun World Magazine, Shooting and Country TV. Welcome to Life at the Range. Well, today we have another sick note edition. If you haven't seen the last video we put out, I'm currently laid up. I've done my perineal nerve. I can't walk. I've got mild paralysis in my left foot, so I'm not going to be humping around HFT courses for a little while. So we're going to be doing some stuff here in the conservatory, and we're also going to be trying to do more stuff in the garden. We've got some really interesting videos coming up, and yeah, so that's pretty much about it. I was actually hoping to have a proper shooting video today, but to be honest with you, I got out yesterday and I was just in too much pain and just couldn't do it. So that's where we are. So, now, what are we talking about today? Well, today we're talking about bracketing. Now, what is bracketing? Well, here we have a target. I'm going to put a picture up on my left hand side. A standard flop over target. Well, it's a standard target, but you can get loads of information from this target, and lots of shooters do. But I'll tell you what, before we get into the target, we need to have a quick look at a multi-aim point reticle. Now, this is an ML10 from Optisan, and as you can see, it's not just the old-fashioned standard up and down and cross. You've got half dot hashes and full dot hashes going up and down above the crosshairs, below, to the right and to the left. They're also numbered, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can use that for information. And what bracketing a target is using that reticle to measure parts of the target. Because obviously, if a target is closer to you, it's going to be bigger in your scope. I'll give you, for instance, here we have a standard target. And now we're going to look at a kill zone. This one is a 25mm target. And when you put it out at 40 yards, it's half a mil dot. That's how wide the target is looking through your scope. So if you know it's a 25mm target and you can measure it at half a mil dot, you know that's 40 yards. If we bring it into 30 yards, the target or the kill zone is bigger. So as long as you know the kill zone sizes, then jobs are good and you can measure every single target going in and going out. So why is that not done by everybody? Well, because a 25mm target at 40 yards is half a mil dot. A 15mm target at 25 yards is half a mil dot. A 35mm target at 45 yards is half a mil dot. So as you can see, you can get yourself into trouble. But there are other things you can do. Now, we'll start off with measuring kill zones. So as I said, if you know what your kill zone is, and that's predominantly when you're doing like 15mm targets, because people don't have a tendency to screw around with them, and you can usually tell if it's a 15mm target, you can measure quite successfully. Using other range finding methods, which we've spoken about in the past, like the head bob and things like that, so you can work out roughly what the range is. And then you start looking out in the distance. You can go, okay, right, I've head bobbed it and it's 40, I think it's somewhere between 35 and 40 yards. You can then measure the kill zone and you think it's a 25mm, and you can tell that by the size of the faceplate and how it looks within the faceplate. You can get a more accurate reading. Now, the other thing that people measure is the hinge. Now, most hinges are standard size. And again, if you can see the hinge and you can measure it from the left to the right, That's a measurable point. Now, there have been a few companies who have made targets with different sized hinges and things like that, but the vast majority of hinges are flop over, knock back, knock over and things like that are all the standard size. I will be able to tell you what they are, but I can't remember what the standard size is off the top of my head. So drugs, sort of pain. But go and find yourself a target and measure it. So make yourself out a little chart and you can measure all your hinges. Now the next measuring point that you can look at is from the centre of the kill to the bottom of the hinge. Now the centre of the kill, when companies like Flop Over and things like that, and they're making a standard faceplate, something like a rat, a rabbit, a squirrel, a rook, a rabbit, a rat, or vast majority of their stuff, they all use the same size paddle on the back of the hinge. So all the paddles have to be the same length because it just makes it cheaper. And because of this, all of the kill zones are all in the same place on the target. Doesn't matter what the faceplate is doing, but the kill zone will always be in the same place. Same distance from the middle of the kill to the hinge. So again, if you can see the hinge, measuring from the middle of the kill to the hinge will give you a very accurate distance. You do get some things like the headshot rabbits and things like that which use a longer paddle, and that will not work on that. But if it's a standard one with a body shot, it's going to be the same. It should be the same. It should be the same distance from the centre of the kill to the hinge. And now we get on to the most complicated amount of measuring that some people do. There are lots and lots of targets out there. Gone are the days where you've only got your rat, rabbit, rook, squirrel and things like that. And people genuinely make up booklets or charts and things like that, and they've got virtually every single target on there. I know Charles Peel, who used to have a very, very comprehensive set of charts, and he used them to great effect. And essentially what they do is they measure through the middle of the kill zone. Now, the reason for this is a lot of call setters use any means necessary to cover up the hinge. Because if you can cover up the hinge, you can stop people obviously measuring the width, and you can stop people measuring from the centre of the kill down to the hinge. But chances are you're never ever going to get to a point where, sorry, pigeons just landed over there. You're never going to get to the point where people are starting covering up the faceplate, because people don't like doing that. So if you can build up a chart, if you can put up, say, a squirrel target, and you measure through the centre of the kill from the side of the faceplate to the right of the faceplate, as long as it's a standard target, you can again use that to measure to great effect, to get your get your accurate distance. The issue you will have with this is firms like Flop Over will not only make odd shape faceplates, they might make odd shaped kills. So again, this is an issue with measuring the kill zone. They're not always going to be 25, 30, 35 or 40. Sometimes they might be 27 and a half. I know for a fact the WHFTA last year at the World Championships, they had 3 or 4 targets that all looked identical, but they were designed to have bigger kills or smaller kills than the faceplate to mess with people who bracket. But what you need to do, or what you can do with the permission of clubs and things like that, is every time you see a new target, find a spot on that target and measure it. So if you know that, say, a squirrel is 4 inches across through the centre of the kill zone, or you pick the head, or any point of the body you want that you can remember and that you can see, write that down. Squirrel through the kill 4 inches. And then all you need to do is come home, get yourself a bit of card, measure out 4 inches, and then you can have a bracket chart that says, okay, anything that's 4 inches is 4mm dots at 20 yards or, or whatever it is. And then what I've done in the past is when I try and measure a target, I've got certain things like 4 inches, 5 inches, whatever, and I try and find a spot within that target that is that particular width. Going through the centre of the kill is the best way of doing it if you want to have multiple different types of things, and it's probably the best way of doing it. But I know that there are certain targets out there where the head is the same width as like the top of the shoulders, or from the paw to the thing, or whatever. So that way, on my little chart, I'll just say squirrel, paw to back shoulder, and that's where I do my measurement, because it means I don't have to spend days upon days doing different charts out at different ranges. But that's about it. Now, where do you get all this information from? Well, that's a difficult one. Now, you could go onto the websites, knock back and knock over and flop over and things like that, and you could have a look at the targets on there. But I will tell you now that we've been a little bit funky because I helped build the flop over website, and with a little bit of manipulation, you will not get totally accurate information from that. So sorry about that. What you've got to do is, if you're a help course setting, go to your local club and say, I would like to help with some course setting. And that way you get permission to go across the firing line, take your tape measure with you, and every time you pick up a target that you haven't seen before, stick a tape on it, make a note, and then you're good to go. So that's pretty much about it. It's a bit of an art form, and it's something you have to need to practice. And it's not something you should rely on absolutely as the only thing to help you range find. It should be something that you use as a backup, or or as a secondary form of range finding. I've always struggled range finding just by eye. I can look at something, and I know there are people out there who can look at something and go, that's 37.2 yards just by eye. I've never been able to do that. I don't have the best depth of field. I don't know if it's being a train driver and I'm always looking at great distances, but I'm not accurate up front. But yeah, let me just have a little think, see if I can think of anything else that I've missed, and I'll come back to you in a sec. Okay, there is one other thing you can look at and you can try. And some people have looked at me like I'm insane when I've said this in the past, but do you know what? In the past, it's actually got me out of trouble a couple of times. You turn up to a target and it's a set distance away and you're struggling to work out how far it is. And you stuck your crosshairs over the thing, and you're looking at it and you've head bobbed it, but you've got the sun coming at you, so that's not accurate, and you can't really measure it, and they've covered the hinge plate and all of that. Well, the number one thing is to say, if you're not sure what it is, check to see what it's not. So if you look at that target and all of the pellets, it's a long target, it's a fair distance away, but all the pellets have struck high above the kill zone, well, it's not going to be 45 yards, because if it was 45 yards, there'll be lots of misses low, because people will have gone, I think that's 40, they've stuck their 40 yards in the middle of it, and they've all hit low. So there's a good chance that if everything is high and it's a long target, people have put their 45 in the middle, so they've come out the top. So sometimes, instead of asking what do you think it is, say, well, hang on, what is it not? But let's say you've got a target and it's peppered all around. You've got misses high, misses low, misses right, misses left, whatever. One thing I've done in the past is I know that on my reticle that I've got a certain small hash marks, because I use the Gen 2, the Vortex Viper, and there are certain marks within scope that if I put them over a pellet strike at 45 yards, it will completely obliterate it. I can't see the pellet strike on the plate. If I do it at 40 yards, there'll be a slight amount of bleed out, so I'll be able to see a part of the pellet strike behind the mark that's within my scope. 35 yards, I'll stick the mark in the middle of the pellet strike, and I'll be able to see loads of the pellet strike around it. So by using that, I know, okay, that's actually nearer to 35 or nearer to 40. Now, the issue can be is if you've got a load of 2.2 shooters shooting in front of you, that can cause a problem, because obviously they leave a much bigger mark. But if you're sitting there and you've got loads of uniformed pellet strikes on the plate, put your crosshair on the top of it, or whatever mark you choose to use. See if you can find one on your scope where it will obliterate it at 45 yards so you can't see it. You can bleed out a little bit of 40, and then you get a good clear picture at 35. Because what it might just do is say, well, do you know what? That's closer to 40 than it is to 35, or closer to 40 than it is to 45. And anything like that could be enough to score you that extra point. Well, that's pretty much it for bracketing targets. We will definitely be doing some shooting next week. In the next video. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the BLK Ghost, and we're going to be doing some silent garden shooting. Well, apart from me moaning as I'm laying down or sitting at the bench. What we want to do is we're going to be shooting different mediums to, not Doris Stokes, we're going to be shooting different mediums to see which will absorb the sound of the pellet strike, and little tips and tricks to essentially stop your next door neighbour Karen from knowing that you're shooting. So that's going to be in the next video. Thank you as ever for all the kind messages and everything that you guys have sent. It's been really is appreciated. Apologies for the fact it's another conservatory based video, but at the moment I just can't get out of the house. I've been stuck in the house now for nearly 3 weeks since I had my injury, and we'll see you all again on the range very, very soon. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a lovely week. Ta-da!